Welcome everybody to Eye of the Serpent Tarot for another pick a card. So today's pick a card is sort of a let's see what's coming up in 2026 primarily sort of pick a card, and it's using some of the approach I take when I do on my private readings through my Etsy store. I do a next year coming type of reading. So we're using some of that, but not all of that, because that's an hour-long reading if people choose to want to get it. But we're going to look at the major themes for 2026 and sort of energies and advice and so forth, using some of the structure and way that I do it, as I say, when I do a private reading. By the way, if you're seeing this when this is published, my store will be actually shut at the time that it's published, but it will reopen around about the last week in January. So I'm going to have my 2026 year ahead reading available till about the end of February 2026, because I've had to shut the store from around about mid-November through to late January. So that will be available. If you haven't already got it and you're interested, you can get it then. And in terms of my scheduling, people who are regulars to this channel will know that I've just been doing one a fortnight because of the sort of complex two-stage move I've been doing. So what I'm hoping to do is by around about mid-January to move back to slightly more by doing one a week rather than one a fortnight, and then in February to move back to doing two picker cards a week, back to my old schedule. So thank you to those that are sticking by me during all of this. It's that normal service will be resumed as soon as possible, but that's a kind of an update on where I think I'm at in terms of when I'll be able to do that. So with all of that put aside, as I say, this reading is about 2026, but it can also be, if you've come across this at some other point and you felt drawn to it, then it could be the next 12 months as well. So it doesn't have to be time specific to 2026, but in the intent in doing this, I'm primarily doing it for those who are interested in that year ahead type reading, but do know you can use it at another stage if you wish. So what we're going to do is do the pile choice here. What I've done is use the Chibi Tarot, which is going to be a tarot that I use to clarify the structure of the reading that I do, because the main structures actually takes up quite a bit of space. So I'm going to use a very small tarot for the main part of it. But it also, this provides the center card for the reading, which is a kind of an access point for how things operate across the various aspects of your life. So what I did ask Spirit was for a major arcana card for each pile to show an energy that is present in the year. And then I'll discuss how that all works in the reading. So these will be part of the theme of the reading, but they're not all of it, because there'll be quite a bit more associated with the actual year ahead aspects using the other tarot. So for pile number 1, we have the Lovers. For pile number 2, we have the Hierophant. And for pile number 3, we have the Tower. By all means, go to more than one if you want, because it could be that there are two aspects of life. If you suspect, for instance, there's a lot of change coming up in one aspect of your life, you might want to go to pile 3 with the Tower there, but you might also want to look at the Hierophant or the Lovers pile as well for other things in your life. If you always go to pile 2, go to pile 2, all of that sort of stuff. Whatever works for you is fine. But when you know what reading or readings you want to go to, the timestamps, as always, are in the description box below, and I'll see you there. Welcome pile 1 to your reading. So you came to the reading with the Lovers as the central point. This does suggest that relationship type decisions are going to be quite key in 2026 or in the next 12 months. It doesn't have to be romantic. The thing about the Lovers card, always looks romantic, and it could very well be. So if you are looking for love, or if you have some big decisions around your significant other coming up in the year, then I would say it's very well aspected with the Lovers being the center card. And that's a positive energy and a choice that you may make, or it could be meeting someone, all of that kind of thing. But it could also just be other relationship choices. And I do think, looking at this, that there is a sort of a shift for you. Certain things, whether they're relationships, and as I say, they could be love relationships, they could be friendships, they could be work relationships. It could be a bit of a combination of all of them. I actually think you're shifting into something new. And so you'll be making some new choices about who is the right people to spend time with, to love, to work with, whatever it might be. Because there is a kind of a sense of sort of endings from the previous 12 months, so from 2025, going into something new and having a good structure for it, but like really there's probably quite a few choices and exploration in this year. Now, the way that I do this reading, each house here is a house in your astrology chart. So very quickly, what they represent. First house is how you appear to others. Second house is how you achieve the life you want in accordance with your values. Third house is communication. Fourth house is who you are at home and who you are in your core. Fifth house is love and romance, children and creativity. Sixth house is your day-to-day routines, your day-to-day work if you're in employment or looking for work, that kind of thing, sometimes health. The seventh house is all types of relationships. What I will say is if there is a key love relationship energy that is romantic, picking up that energy, then it will soak up most of this. I suspect though with this reading, if there are other relationship energies going on, however, but nevertheless, that is around relationships. The eighth house is intimate partnerships, other people's resources, and sort of psychic, spiritual energy that you would think of as scorpionic, sort of ritual, magic, mystery schools, or mediumship, all that kind of thing. The ninth house is how you expand your life, things like higher learning, travel, philosophy, to create the life you want in the second house. So where you've got the Page of Wands, the 10th house is your career, so longer term, and your personal brand. So if this is your day-to-day work or that you do for your vocational personal brand, this is the longer term. The 11th house is social networks, friendships, and social media. And the 12th house is the other spiritual house. It's the sort of Piscean, liminal space, astral travel-y type house. It's also what you keep private. Now, there is a very strong energy here. What I do is I start by looking at the axis point, using this as an axis point between relationships, how you're seen by others in your relationships, who you are at your core and who you are in the world, what do you want to create and how do you do it? And then we'll talk more generally. There is a very strong energy in those three axis points for kinds of themes around, as I say, endings and new beginnings, and being really in the box seat to do it. When we have the King of Pentacles reversed, there will be some stuff around work, which I will talk about because of the energy that we have there. But because we have lovers, like relationship energy there in the center, I think a lot of this is that there are some relationship energies that have done their time. It doesn't necessarily mean they were bad, but they've given you what they could give you. It's more likely to be turning up in something like a career or learning. I mean, for some of you, you may actually be graduating or something like that this year with the energy that I'm seeing there, or you might just have done it. But there is when the King of Pentacles is reversed, to me that is that there was sort of like a material benefit around something and a stability around something, but it has given what it's going to give. So again, I mean, it can be, if it turned up in the career house, it could be, you've done a job, you've done everything you can get out of it beyond, salary each week or fortnight. You need to sort of like think about the next step because you're not going to grow any further there. So there is something here where you are assessing material things and what's going to work for you. And it could impact your work, but it's largely going to be, I think, around relationships. And you've mastered, with the Eight of Pentacles reversed, decisions around relationships. So there is definitely a sense here that you know what you're doing. This does not feel like a bad thing. It feels like it's like a classic for this actually could be someone who, it's not that they're leaving the relationship with their parents and never seeing them again, but they're moving out of home. There's a choice card down here, a movement or transition. So it could easily be shifting a relationship by moving out of home, for instance, just as an example. But there is a definite sense of, I've got to a particular level, I've got what I came from this, it's now time to move to something else. Not in a cold way of, like, oh, well, who cares about the impact on anybody else, I've got what I've got, I'm moving on. It's more that you've mastered relationships and know when something, it's time to shift. It could be even changing something, changing a relationship, changing its structure in some way. But it feels like change. It feels like choices about who to go forward with on one level or another, which is then interesting when we have a look at the Death card down in the fourth house. The fourth house is many things, but it is partly who you are at your core. So transition and change is very, very important in this year. Like you can't stay stuck. This is a year when you're meant to move forward. I think it's really interesting in the way that the card is portrayed in this particular deck. It looks to me almost a bit like the Chariot. So I get a similar energy in the Death card as the Chariot, like momentum. There is momentum to change, transition, move forward and do something else. Now for you, again, it's how you relate to others. And as I say, you've mastered what you need to do there. So you'll make good decisions, but the decisions you make about others in that transition will inform what you're going to do around your career. But at the moment, it looks like you haven't decided how you want to express that. There's definitely a sense over here, which I'll get to, that you have a good plan around your career, vocation, any way you're going to make money, that kind of thing. But it's almost as though you're allowing the fact that you have to shift old systems, old relationships, anything that's not working, change that at your core, and then work out, what does that mean? Who am I going to be in the world? And for some of you with the Ace of Wands reversed in the houses around social media as well, you may literally this year start thinking about, how do I express myself on that kind of level? There's definitely with the World in the ninth house the possibility of taking something international, taking a message international, something like that. So I do feel that there's a big shift and a big transition operating here, and I'll work it out as I go along type of, how do I want to express this, partly because you know you can back yourself on how you manage relationships. So that's very positive, but it's definitely a sense of moving on. The same thing here. One of the things that you are wanting to do to have the life that you want, and like this is Taurus's house, so this is a good life, and it's fine to want the house on the hill and the Porsche or whatever it is that you want, but you need to let go of some burdens, things that you're carrying, things that are no longer serving you as well. And it's completing something to do that. Again, it could be connected with relationships where they're more of a burden than they're actually taking you forward. But it's also possible, as I say, this could be something like completing, with the World card up in the house of higher learning, completing some sort of study or something like that. You let go of that burden and it's now more about how you connect with others, not so much about getting the qualification. Or it's letting go of things so that you can close out what is no longer working and you can expand your reach more broadly. So I just have this sense of like, these two cards are almost the most pivotal. It's a sense of anything in 2025 that worked pretty well then, but was, took a bit out of you, is now not taking you where you need to go. And you need to kind of almost declutter your life, close out the things that are not expanding you anymore. And then that allows you to start to think of a more creative way of doing things. Because you are a creative person, but I think that you're a little bit at war with yourself. Like creatively, and with the Queen of Swords reversed in the house of communication, I think you're a perfectionist. I think you can be a bit hard on yourself. And you may also have had critique. And this may be partly, you might have had someone as a mentor or a friend or a coach or something like that, and it's got to the point where it's more critical rather than it's helpful, and it's time to sort of like own your own decisions. But otherwise, you may be too critical of yourself, because I sort of feel with the Five of Wands in the house of creativity that there's sort of like, there's all this creative energy that wants to come out in you, out into the world, social media, around your friendships and so forth. But there's a little bit of ambivalence about it. The other thing that could be going on with the Five of Wands there, and then the Ace of Wands reversed and then the Three of Wands here, is that it's possible for some of you that there may be a new potential relationship coming through. And right now you're kind of in the closing out of old ones and clearing your life. But like through a friendship or social media thing, a passion could come. And you may be a little bit ambivalent at first with the Five of Wands here, and then with the Three of Wands reversed in the eighth house, about whether you want to be, in a relationship, the passion-based, intimate relationship, or whether you want something else. So give yourself time. Remember that you've mastered this, and your acuity for what will and won't work for you is very, very good. But there's definitely a sense of you not rushing things, having closed out on stuff. So that's a really important theme. We've also got the Devil in the 12th house. So one of the things for you, if you are kind of decluttering your life, closing out on things, managing all of that so that you can allow new energy to come through, that you've kind of battled to be able to have the time and space to do before, you are very focused on not getting yourself tied to something that isn't right. So you don't want to go, if this was leaving a relationship that wasn't working and a new one was coming in, one of the reasons why you might be a bit ambivalent is that you're not going to tie yourself to another relationship. You've got to give it time to see what happens. So I don't think that's a bad thing. I think, again, the energies around who you connect with are very important this year. So give yourself that time to do that. And don't be too critical on yourself. But and don't be too critical of others. If you are closing out on things, remember you've mastered how to deal with relationships. So it's like you can do that without criticizing or being harsh in any way. And that way, you close out on situations without regret. So that's important to think about as well. You could change where you live this year with the death card there. That can be a transition or a change, particularly if you decide that will help you be out in the world in a more clear way, or if it fits with a business plan and the material things that you want to do, with your work in some way, that's a possibility. Other changes could occur in your home life. If you are a parent, you could find that there are some conflicts with the children, like if you have children, there could be sibling rivalry, a child could be having trouble at school. Some of those things could be happening and you could be making some changes to help and support that. It's not a major thing with the Five of Wands. It's kind of more minor conflict, but it is potentially there. So that's a possibility. You may just decide that that's part of what you have to shift. The material things in your life, you need to go somewhere else just to have that new fresh sort of like approach to things, which will bring other people inevitably into your environment because you have a new environment. So that brings in the new as well. You are here doing well, I think, on a day-to-day basis. If you're looking for a job, you'll find one, I would say, with the Page of Pentacles. If you're trying to build a business case within a job or for your business or something like that, that will go well as well too. You're actually very structured. You're able to kind of plan for things and so forth. You're at the early stages of what you want to do with your day-to-day work and what you want to do with your career. So that works quite well. It gives you a solid foundation, but allows you the potential to grow, particularly creatively and how you express yourself. So that's going to be really powerful for the year as well too. As I say, you've got mastery in dealing with others and so forth. And it may be that that's part of what this is meant to be expressing. It may be that your understanding of people in some way is something that's going to power your personal brand and your communication and what you can achieve this year. As I said, if there is an intimate partnership, you may not be sure if you're on the same path, so give it time. Similarly, if you are a creative and you've got a creative product and you feel ready to do something with it, but you're a little bit worried about how it's going to be received in the world, I would suggest you need to do it through your own work rather than looking for a patron or a publisher or something like that, because it looks to me like if you were a classic creative and you were looking for that kind of patronage, you're not going to be on the same page this year as other people. You might have been before. Maybe this is the shift, and now you've got to sort of think about, how do I get myself out into the world and express what I'm doing without that kind of structure around me. Travel itself is a great idea for this year. If you do want to do that, particularly international travel, will really expand horizons. As I say, there's certainly a sense here, if there's something new that you want to do on social media, it gets that kind of reach, which is good. So I think like the main energy around this, spiritually, there's some really significant kind of like dream imagery and meditation and shamanic journey and all that kind of thing to kind of like clear any other sort of restrictions you have. You can do that. You have a natural ability, and you have an untapped kind of clairvoyant visual sort of ability that you might start to tap into more this year. But as I say, the overarching energy here is towards change, because you've reached the zenith in the last 12 months of certain relationships and certain situations, and it's time for the new, but it's very well favoured. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a Chibi Tarot, and I'm just going to get a card for each of the reversed cards, not because they're bad, but because they're a different nuance for the archetype. So we just want to see what clarification we get. And I'm using the Chibi Tarot so that if the same cards come up but in different houses or whatever, it kind of connects houses and so forth. So King of Pentacles reverse. Let's see a little bit more about this ending of things, relationships in particular, but ending of things that are no longer working for you materially. This is what's coming across. So we have Seven of Wands because you're ready to step up and you're ready to compete and you're ready to be seen as more. So yeah, this is a real sense of graduation around this, or promotion. And it's good. It's a good energy. So that's why it's important not to be too critical of yourself or of others when that's going on. So what else can we get around the Queen of Swords reversed, around communication? Queen of Coins reversed. Okay, so this is maybe showing one challenge for you to be aware of this year. You have a good foundation in like whatever you're doing on a day-to-day work basis or vocational basis or anything like that. But you are a little bit of a perfectionist, and it stops you committing to something. Now, it's okay on one level for a while to do that. If you're coming out of a King of Pentacles reversed energy, you're coming into like, let's experiment and do new things. That's okay. But it's important not to use it as an excuse not to commit to something and build something, because there is a potential for that here. So you may also be coming across as ambivalent, as I say, in relationship energy, particularly if somebody's interested in sort of committing. But I just don't think you're going to let that happen too quickly if that's the case. Let's have a look at Eight of Pentacles reversed in the 7th house. Three of Coins reversed. Okay. So one of the things that you're going to probably have to master, like this feels like a promotion, starting your own business, graduation, is that you're moving from group work into something that is much more you. And part of what you're going to be able to do very well, I think, is manage the relationship issues associated with that. You're good with people, but it's saying what you're doing this year is not really a team sport. It's really something more for you. And then that makes sense again with the Three of Wands reversed there. It's sort of like it's not the best year for looking for patrons and things like that. It's much more you expressing yourself. So what else do we get around the Three of Wands reversed? The Empress. Yeah, there's great abundance to come, but it's you. I think it's your sovereignty, your idea. That's the thing that has to matter in all of this. Also, if this is around intimate partnerships, you could potentially find your divine counterpart or something like that this year. But like, just give it time, because this whole energy around this is don't rush anything, let things emerge. So similarly for the Page of Wands reversed in the 10th house, and we get Temperance reversed. Okay, so there is a little bit of an issue here around keeping everything in balance. And look, that's tricky to do if you're starting new things, starting a new level. So be aware of that, particularly with this energy here. It may be that the next stage sort of feels a little bit unclear, uncertain, unbalanced. Just give it time. Remember that you're good with people, and that's going to be the main thing that matters, but you may feel a little bit that way. So don't sabotage yourself by going, oh, it's not working, and sort of not commit to something. Like, give it time to evolve. And with the Ace of Wands reversed, Five of Coins reversed, yeah, you're not going to be alone. You're not going to be alone or lonely. You're going to find new friends, all of that kind of thing. And if you felt a little bit isolated for some reason or other, or if you think that leaving one thing is going to isolate you, you don't have to worry about that. You will have friends around you. You will have support around you. So, it's a good energy overall for the year. I don't think there's anything that major to be concerned about beyond in that transitional phase of who am I becoming, not giving up too soon on the new thing. Remember that you saw something all the way through, and that's been really good for you, and you can like settle into something new, and that's important, whether it's a new relationship in love or a new career or whatever it might be. Okay, so let's just do 3 rolls of the Astro Dice for some other information about energies that are important in the year. So firstly, we have Neptune, so your psychic ability, 7th house. So your psychic ability helps. It's one of the reasons why you've mastered relationships in Aries. So really listen to your intuition when you are trying to sort out particularly passion-based things with Aries, but also because I think you're meant to go into some sort of leadership connection in relationship to others. Listen to your intuition. It will be very much on point. Secondly, we have Uranus in Pisces in the 9th house. Okay, so you are completing something in the ninth house, and so forth. This is meant to bring a big change in your sort of psychic ability, your empathic ability, and all of those sort of things. If you wanted to study something in this year, then looking at things that connect you to other people, really psychically or emotionally, would be really powerful. And we have Sun in the fifth house in Scorpio. Okay, this may be why there's a sense that if you're going to do something that is creative, to do it on your own, because Scorpio can be very intense about their vision and their path. But this could also be another sign that there's a romance coming in that is very intense and is on your life path. So it just depends on whether you're looking for love, but that is a possibility. Okay. Let's just see chakra energy as well for the year. Just get a couple of chakra cards for things to be aware of. Okay, so we have sacral chakra. I feel emotionally overreactive. Now that's interesting because you're actually very, very good with people, but I think it's the amount of change. And as I say, you may respond to things too quickly, and particularly around who you want to be in the world and how you're communicating in the world. So remember that you actually are really good with people. You have learnt a lot. Don't let that overtake you. Kind of like stop, breathe, think it through. And we also have the third eye. I see and can have mental fog. Okay. Now that's interesting because you had the sort of Pisces energy, I think, with Neptune. Sometimes telepathically, and I think the third eye is very telepathic, can be an overload from others. So again, this is sort of like, this may be partly this as well too, like always clarifying with yourself, is it my thought? Is it my sense of the world? So that you have that clarity going forward. Because it's like you're absorbing a lot of other people's stuff. And when we've got the devil card there, you may be naturally empathic and picking up other people's emotions and other people's thoughts. So just be aware of that. You're very good with people, and that's probably partly because you are able to do all of that, but you also need to make sure you're not overloaded. Okay, we'll get you a couple of animal guides for the year. Eagle, flying high with spirit. So yeah, getting up above it all when you need to do that, when you're sort of feeling I'm a bit overloaded and I want to get a better perspective. And walrus, paternalistic autonomy. Okay. So for some of you, some of you it's like moving out of home or moving away from a male figure that was, like somehow dominant or had some authority, changing a workplace or whatever. But it is you coming into your own sovereignty and moving up the ladder as well, I think. But walrus will help you with that. Okay, so last but not least, we're just going to do a synthesizing spiritual message. So I want you to choose a number between 1 and 5. Pause if you need to, because depending upon which number you choose, I'm going to use the Neptune Moon deck for just another piece of spiritual synthesis for the next year for you. So for number 1, we have Freedom's Embrace. For number 2, we have Planet of the Crossing. For number 3, we have Survival Mode. For number 4, we have Elevation Ascension. And for number 5, we have Eternal Cycle. Wow, okay. All right. So if you chose number 1, the big energy, I think, is probably that first access point where you're leaving things that no longer work for you, and also that 10 of Wands, letting go of the burdens. There is a sense of freedom. I think that the message in the cards overall for you is that once you achieve freedom from one thing or the next level up or whatever, you have a new adjustment phase, and just give yourself time to settle into that. Not dissimilarly, if you chose number 2 with Planet of the Crossing, Crossroads, there are choices, and particularly choices around relationships that are key here. And I think it's saying, yes, close out on those that are not taking you forward, but make the choice to not choose until you get a little bit more information around new ones coming in. If you chose number 3, Survival Mode, Heightened Alertness, you might be worried about, like you might have left a job or, some sort of security, and maybe you didn't even want to do it. So maybe that happens early in the year or happens sort of at the end of 2025. And this has put you in a survival mode, which would click in with the Queen of Swords reverse and the Queen of Pentacles reverse. Where's the security? What can I do? What's going on? Bear in mind here that it's showing that you have very good sense of like people and relationships, and there's with the Six of Pentacles in particular in the sixth house, you have a good foundation. So if you find yourself in that situation, I don't think you'll be in it long, but again, you'll be in something new after that. If you chose number 4, elevation ascension, ready to level up, yeah, it's definitely picking up this moving up the ladder, graduating, or whatever that particularly applies to the year for you. And if you chose number 5, eternal cycle, reincarnation, I actually think it's pointing a little bit to this Three of Wands reverse here. I think not only are you going to have a kind of a spiritual gift coming through around clairvoyance, but I think watch the visions that you get, because I think you're actually going to find you have access to, reincarnation information, Akashic record information, that sort of thing. Like there's a upgrade operating at that level to connect you with your other lives and to give you a much broader, longer term perspective. And particularly I think connecting with the eagle, the concept of being up above things and seeing a longer continuum. So I hope that resonates for you. I hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like and subscribe. If you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome, Pile 2, to your reading. So you come to the reading with the Hierophant. So the Hierophant is the centre card. And this is a card that kind of gives an overarching theme for the year, but it also is really important as a balancing axis point for 3 key axis points, which I'll describe in a minute around the reading itself. The reading structure here is based on the astrology chart. So each house is represented and they represent different parts of your life. So the first house is how you appear to others. Second house is how you get the life you want in accordance with your values. Third house is communication. Fourth house is who you are at home and in your core. Fifth house is love relationships, sort of romance relationships, creativity and children. Sixth house is your day-to-day work if you're working or looking for work, or routines, sometimes health. Seventh house is all types of relationships. If there is a very key relationship that either is just starting or that you're wanting to move to the next level, it tends to soak up most of that energy. Otherwise, it's all relationships. Eighth house is intimate partnerships, other people's resources, and the sort of scorpionic kind of spiritual aspects. Ninth house is how you expand your life to create what you're wanting in the second house. So things like higher learning, travel and philosophy. The 10th house is your personal brand and who you are out in the world and your career as opposed to the day-to-day work. The 11th house is friendships, social media, social networking and so forth. And the 12th house is the Piscean spirituality, the kind of more liminal space. And it's also what you keep private. Now, the thing that's interesting with the Hierophant there is that I think there are certain themes that might have been why you came and chose this particular reading, or which are going to permeate this reading. The Hierophant is all around structure, the rules. It can be like traditional sort of like spirituality or kind of, where there is a doctrine, that kind of thing. In work, it can be sort of academic, sometimes scientific, can be things like regulators, that kind of stuff. So there's things about the rules and the established doctrine that is important in some way this year. And I think that for you, you are looking to change some of the structures of your life in this year. And because you're very aware of the Hierophant, what the rules are, what if you wanted to change a job, you understand your industry very well, that kind of thing. You're going to take things slowly and carefully. And there's nothing wrong with doing that. It's actually probably a very good thing to do. Your aim is to free yourself up and get more autonomy, but you're very aware of maintaining security and stability while you do it. There's also potentially quite a key relationship romantically that could come in, or a decision about what level to take a romantic relationship to. And that's well aspected here if that does happen, or if you meet someone and you're thinking, could it be something where you'd want to get married or move in or whatever. So that's there. But there is a sense with you at the moment of some change process that you're going to go through and that you want to go through, because you feel like you and how you're expressing yourself and who you are in the world is almost like an unfinished portrait. It says some unfinished business. And I think you are going to start to creatively make the relationship and career and other decisions to do that, but it's step by step by and large. So the reason I'm saying that is that apart from the Hierophant being there, there are three axis points we're going to look at first. One is from the first house to the seventh house. So bearing in mind that an overarching theme for you is around understanding the rules and the structures and all of that kind of thing, almost the heritage or the tradition around the energies that we're looking at, who you are in the world, how you're shown in the world, and how that fits in with the world that you're in and with other people is the first one. Then we're going to have a look at who you are at your core, with what you're going to do with your personal brand in relation to that. Then we're going to look at the life that you want to create with how you do it. So if we look at Death reversed to the Four of Wands, this is telling me that there is a change in how you want to be perceived in the world. But you, at least at the point of hearing this reading or going into 2026 or the next 12 months, you haven't yet fully committed to that change, but it's there. You've got time. You don't have to rush. I think it has something to do with home life and happiness in home life. That could be because over here with the Four of Wands, I mean, it could also be like happy teams in a workplace as well. But when we've got the Eight of Wands down in the fourth house, I feel like there's a question here about what sort of changes do you need to maximize the sense of autonomy, freedom and happiness of yourself and anyone that you live with or your family, that kind of thing. And it could be deciding to move from, like a family environment, for instance, or from, a share house arrangement to something where you're more on your own and you feel you have more autonomy. But there's something you're going to be able to make the change in a way that people are happy with. So you're not going to be disrupting any kind of written or unwritten rules that are around your relationships, friendships, work, or whatever it is. But there is some sort of change energy operating around that. But it seems to be well favoured with others. I don't think that people think there's anything wrong in what you want to do. And as I say, at your core, you want some liberation. Eight of Wands with the Page of Wands up in the house of travel. You may want to just travel a lot this year. You might put off some major decisions about career, where you want to live long term, relationships or whatever, just to explore. And that may be a way that you slow down the change on all of that. If that's the case, you've got the you've either got a work, you've got a job that you can take leave from, or you've got financial stability enough to be able to do something like that. But there's definitely an emphasis here towards freedom. And it's an interesting thing when we've got the Tower reverse, which is slowly but surely changing how you present yourself in your world or what your career is. But it's not massive change. And it's interesting that we've got the Hierophant there, because the Hierophant almost would operate as a brake on the Tower in a lot of ways, because the Hierophant is, as I say, the established, the traditional, the structural, and the Tower is more Uranian and everything changes. But when the Tower is reversed, it is more structured and is slower. So there is a move towards freedom. Like, I would definitely say there's a move towards freedom, freedom of expression, freedom of where you live, freedom of how you want to be in the world. But it's done within a structure. So it feels more like somebody who is looking to, move up a ladder and get more autonomy in a workplace, or go to a organization that you feel like it's in the industry that you're in, but you want it to be sort of something that fits more with you than what you're feeling at the moment. That kind of energy. Or if it is around, do I get married this year? Do I make that sort of a commitment? You're going to be looking at what is the changes and how to limit the changes and what that means in your personal brand, and how do you still retain some autonomy while still being happy with the relationship. So there's an energy of change, but it is measured change within a system, I would say, or within the expectations of others. And I think this is one of the reasons why people are happy enough with you with this, and they're also happy for you to take the time you need to decide about it. But you feel there's something unfinished. For you want to finish something, you want to achieve something that you feel you haven't yet. So it's like, if you're trying to kind of, it could be that you're studying and you want to finish that study this year, and so you put a lot of effort into it in the Page of Wands. Or it could be that, you feel you've got a reasonable way in a career, but it's not really where you want to be. So you've got to be thinking about how do you act, and where do you put your energy and your passion and so forth. How do you do that to finish off the things that need to be finished off so that you can achieve the change that you want. But as I say, I mean, like even the Page of Wands, it's sort of like it's the beginning of focusing that energy, and then you've got the change energy that's a little bit more measured here. So it's, yes, I do want to expand my world and create myself and be more authentic with what I want, and I want to close out things that have limited me before, but I'm very aware of the impact on, the structures of my life. So it's a kind of an overarching theme. So bearing that in mind with death reversed, some people may think that you are not making a decision you need to make. It's interesting that you have the Queen of Wands reversed in the third house. You don't feel like you've self-actualized. You're definitely on the path to self-actualizing, but you're not expressing yourself as fully as you could. And it may be that some people, particularly those that really care about you, may feel that you're underestimating yourself or underselling yourself because you feel like, like the rules of the system are such. It's interesting. What it reminds me of is there were some studies done around men and women, and this is not meant to have a go at men at all. It's just an interesting thing. They did some studies about people applying for jobs, and they found if there was a set of criteria in a job ad, if women would only really apply if they thought they probably fit at least say 80% of that criteria, whereas men, as long as they fit about 30, they'd apply. And in many ways what the men were doing was sensible, because there's such a lot of serendipity in many ways around whether you get interviewed or not, that it gave men an advantage. But it's just kind of, women often do underestimate, or they feel they have to be able to prove a lot more to be able to go to the next level. Now, as I say, I'm not wanting to get into a gender war here. I'm just saying that was an interesting study. So regardless of gender, you may have a tendency to underrepresent yourself. So think about that, because there's a cautious energy here, I think. And I understand the rules and so forth. And no criticism at all. I'm pretty risk averse. And particularly when it comes to rules, regulations or whatever, I'm very precise, and that's the way I feel secure, stable and so forth. So I get this energy, but at the moment you may be overdoing it. So it's think about how to be more bringing yourself out into the world. Because people really like you, and like friendships, social media, all that sort of stuff, people really like you. That I do think, if anything, people think you underestimate yourself or you're not presenting all that you could be. So it's also possible you could have people coming to you who are looking for, inspiration about how to do better, which is an interesting thing, because sometimes, if you mentor somebody, in a way it becomes your own development as well, because you start to realize things about yourself. There is a kind of a realization of self versus the system in this particular reading. So you might come across as sometimes a bit indecisive, but it's not really going to upset the apple cart too much. In the fourth house, beyond things like, who you are at your core, which is like independence, freedom, that kind of thing, energy, wanting to move, wanting to change. Like, this is actually a push-pull energy, because this is the slow down and this is the speed up. And I think it's always the context that you will decide, like when you can sort of rush forward and when you have to slow it down. I do feel it's quite well balanced, but don't underestimate yourself. You may want to travel, as I say. You may want to move. Knight of Wands would be more classically moving, but nevertheless, Eight of Wands could be that. It's certainly a wish for freedom. You may be deciding, with the Judgment card in the fifth house, you might be called upon. You could be, somebody could ask you to marry them or something like that. There's a decision around creativity or love that you are going to be called to make in this particular year. And I think part of this is like, how do you have what is societally and group-wise seen as the appropriate thing there, but you also have your freedom. So I think that's a big question for you. How do you not get sort of trapped in anything? But certainly, if you are looking at a love relationship, you may meet someone through social media or friendship, and that's a very good sign of a romantic connection. It may move very quickly to something serious. It's good. It breaks you out of an emotional block, and it's likely to be very happy. So certainly anybody who's looking for love, or who is thinking like it may be time to take something to the next level, if you want to do it, it's very well aspected for this year, certainly. And maybe that makes you move home, or you both move home, or something like that. So that's interesting. If you have children, they might be at the age where they're starting to go to school. There's a sort of a liberation energy and like, they're being called to the next stage or something like that. You don't have to have children, but if you do, because these two houses can pick that kind of energy up. And if it's something creative, then you may get some sort of an offer that breaks through that, and it's a good thing to consider, and get help from somebody or patronage from somebody. In the sixth house, you've got a good foundation. But again, there is a little bit of a thing here where you may be underestimating yourself. You may go, the system is such you only get promoted every 3 years, and so I'm not even going to try. But if you did push, you might get promoted way quicker than that because you've got a good foundation, but you may be underestimating yourself. The Four of Pentacles gives you that sense of, yes, the money is there, it's secure, but sometimes we give up the opportunities to keep the security. And there is, as I say, a little bit of a risk-averse energy operating here. So make sure that you balance that because it does look like you can gradually build yourself up and achieve more. Like you don't have to stay still, and it's not the right energy to just stay still. Four of Wands in the seventh, as I say, really happy relationships with people, happy team relationships, all of that kind of thing. Very nice energy. Four of Cups in the eighth house, apart from potentially breaking through emotional barriers in intimate partnerships or getting some really good connections creatively, you probably got an untapped emotional acuity spiritually, like empathy and so forth, and the capacity to break through that. And that'll probably help you in breaking through your own risk aversion, but you may help others with that. You've also got a very strong kinesthetic ability that you're not necessarily really tapping into yet, with the other spiritual house over here being Page of Pentacles reversed. So there's definitely a kind of like listen to your gut a bit more, all those sort of kinesthetic things like, clairgustance, where you sort of think you taste something or whatever. Pay attention to that. You've got an ability there that's going to potentially help you this year if you don't sort of suppress it. We've talked about travel. We've talked about getting yourself out there creatively. There's definitely a creative element to how you expand yourself. And freedom, like it's very Sagittarian. This is Sagittarius's house, but like we've got a fire sign there, and then we've got the Eight of Wands there. There's a Sagittarian sort of feeling to your philosophy, like freedom and so forth. And that's being balanced against the Hierophant, which is almost the opposite energy. So I do think you're sorting that out. Hence why with the Tower reverse, it's kind of gradual change, but that's okay. We've talked about love potentially coming in, certainly very good connections on social media and friendships and so forth. There could be a friend who's got a secret crush on you. If you're not sort of like with someone or thinking something's happening, that could be going on as well. Or you could develop a bit of a secret crush on somebody in the friendship circle. What you're not necessarily showing to others is your kind of worry about whether you've got everything in your kit bag to move forward. They're picking it up though. So like this is almost like if you just started to plan a bit more, you'd actually probably feel a bit better about getting out and showing yourself. Because I do think this year you can move faster and do better romantically, friendship-wise, your personal brand, your career, than you're giving yourself credit for. It's not a bad year, but it's just you're limiting yourself more than you need to. So let's just clarify the reversed cards, not because they're bad, but because they're a different energy of the archetype. We'll be using the Chibi Tarot in case we get the same cards coming up at any point. So Death reverse, a little bit more about the maybe indecisive or slow change energy about how you're coming across to others. Ace of Wands. Yeah, I definitely think if there's a new love coming in or if you're thinking about going to the next level, you are going to take time with that. And that's fine, as long as it doesn't get to the point. I mean, you could get an ultimatum from someone like, let's take it to the next level or I'm moving on. So, but otherwise, I think, the creative energy, there's a blessing there, but you're taking time to do something with it. What do you need to complete in the second house? Tower, major change. That's interesting. The Tower's reversed there. Okay, there is something here. There is an energy, and it's going to probably be more prevalent for some that come to this reading than others. But there is definitely a feeling here that there is a big change that could occur. But there's almost like, and it is needed, but you feel like it's much bigger than it has to be, like, or that you're trying to slow it down. So around love, around career or whatever, it's worth thinking about that, because it's kind of like at some point the tower has to fall. At some point you have to go into doing something new. This might be giving you a clue though and saying these two work together in a way that like you start to work out how you want to expand your life creatively, and then you can allow that to happen more. What about the Queen of Wands reversed in the third house? The Star. Yeah, you're meant to be communicating your aspirations and believing in your aspirations. Four of Cups reversed in the eighth house. So intimate partnerships, other people's resources. Page of Wands reversed. Okay, so that's connecting to this. There may be a very direct connection for some of you between a love relationship and a decision around a love relationship, and then how you can expand your life. But it's definitely showing that while you suppress that side of yourself, like the change energy and the going forward energy, it's like you get caught in an emotional block. So there is a pressure being put on you to not just stay where it's safe and secure. See the Tower reversed in the 10th house. Six of Cups. There could be a return for some of you to sort of spiritual beliefs and so forth from when you were very young, or you may be homesick or something like that, and you're sort of like you're spending all your year in a suitcase and hardly ever home, and you really want to change things, but it's hard to do it because there's so much going on. And otherwise, it's like you maybe are someone who finds it a little bit hard to let go of the past. Think about that, because there's new opportunities for you. And Page of Pentacles reversed in the 12th house. Seven of Wands. Yeah, you are ready to step up, to be seen, to be successful, all of those things, but you're not planning for it. That's probably the thing. It's sort of like it all seems a bit overwhelming and too much, and you feel sort of, I'll just stay where it's safe. Or with relationships, like, do I want to get that, or am I going to lose my freedom? And it's sort of like you're not planning for any of these things. If you start to plan for them, you'll feel more able to do it. Okay, so we're going to do 3 rolls of the Astro Dice for any other kind of astrology information for the year for you. So firstly, we have the first house, so who you are in the world. Aries, you're meant to be seen and be ambitious. And Neptune, turn to your intuition and trust your intuition on this. Like you are meant, and it's also pointing to the 12th house with sort of Neptune next. Neptune is a very 12th housey type of energy. 12th house and the first house, like this is where like once you plan to move up the ladder, then you're going to be able to do it. But you are a little bit with the Neptune there. The ambition is there, but you're a little bit unsure of it. Secondly, we have the 6th house, Neptune again. Like your spiritual ability is very strong. This is a bit untapped, but it's very strong. You really like to keep balance with others, and you have a very good sense of that. That's part of the reason why things go well in your career and why people like you. They really do like you a lot. But thinking about how do I actually use that in my day-to-day work to work for me as well. And then thirdly, we have Mars, so again, action, Taurus, pointing really to this sort of closing out, making the change in the 7th house. This is showing that action that you want to take to create the life that you want is going to go fine because you've got good energy for the 7th house. It could also be committing to a life with someone, with another party, sort of because of Venus and Mars are the kind of planets of love. So that's a possibility as well. So for some of you, there's a pretty significant love relationship energy this year. Okay, let's get a couple of chakra energies for you. Firstly, the heart chakra, I love but can struggle saying no. Okay, this is probably the Queen of Wands reversed to some extent, and also like if you feel pressured or whatever. So I think, again, plan for what you want. That's the key thing. Plan for what you want. It'll make it easier to know what decisions you have. And then the crown chakra, I sense a higher consciousness. So yeah, with all that Neptune that was coming in, your spiritual psychic gifts are going to really accelerate this year, which then connects back to like what's your belief structure. All right, let's get you a couple of animal guides as well for the year. Dragonfly, breaking free from illusion. So yeah, and that's interesting with the Hierophant. I think it might be a year of like what in terms of what you believe about the world and the rules of the world are working for you and what aren't. Like it's like getting clarity, and particularly spiritual clarity. And eagle, flying high with spirit. Yeah, getting up and seeing things from a higher perspective. Okay, so to finish off, we're just going to get you a spiritual energy to synthesize the year's energies. So I want you to choose a number between 1 and 5. Pause if you have to, because depending upon which number you choose, that will be your final synthesis message. And I'm about to deal them out, so pause if you need to. For number 1, guiding star. For number 2, fearlessly Pluto. For number 3, all that sparkles. For number 4, path of progress. And for number 5, Apis bull. Wow, okay. So if you chose number 1, using inspiration and intuition, it's really doubling down on what I was saying, that with that Neptunian energy coming through so strongly and like untapping both your kind of kinesthetic and your emotional sort of like spiritual radars, you will get the guiding energy. Plus the guiding star makes me think of the star around communication, starting to believe in yourself and say that is part of your compass, rather than hiding a light under a bushel with the Queen of Wands reversed. If you chose number 2, fearlessly Pluto, transform and face your fears. Yeah, like there's something about this tower energy. Like it's okay to take it step by step out in the world. In fact, that might be what it's showing. Like do the work internally really radically with the 8 of Wands and so forth. Like make a really major change in what your direction is and what you're planning for. And then you maybe incrementally can do it in the outside world. But you do need to change. If you chose number 3, all the sparkles, it could be showing particularly around the sort of like the pentacle sort of energy of spirituality, using sort of things like gemstones and crystals may help you. Otherwise, there is a bit of a thing about what is real. I always think of all that sparkles as a bit like all that glitters is not gold. So what do you really believe as opposed to what are the rules that seem to be around you could be a bit of a theme for the year. If you chose number 4, you've got path of progress, so self-betterment. So this is all about you. This year is all about that. And there's a lot of really good energy and people are on your side. So don't slow it down. And if you chose number 5 with Apis Bull, embodied primal force, there's a lot of, you're kind of suppressing quite a bit of the sort of like Wands energy, but there is a lot of sort of ambition and drive and self-actualization energy here. So I think the Apis Bull is here is to give you the strength to be able to do what you need to do. So I hope that resonates for you. I hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like and subscribe. If you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome, pile 3, to your reading. So you were possibly the brave group that came to the Tower. Not that the Tower is a bad card. I actually think the Tower is a really good card. It clears out energy when energy needs to be cleared out. And if we go with that change, things usually go very, very well. But nevertheless, it is one of the more feared cards in the deck. So if you come to this, as I say, well done you for your bravery. And in fact, I think it will be rewarded because this is a pretty positive spread, I have to say. There is potentially, for some of you, a big shift in your career because of either dealing with someone who's not particularly trustworthy in like maybe the authority structure, or because you don't feel that you're able to express yourself or be truly yourself, or you've kind of almost outgrown a particular level that you're at or something like that. So there is that energy around, but otherwise I think most of this is towards you clearing out anything that is no longer working for you and moving towards some really good new connections and new things. So the Tower energy is really about change that comes because you want it, I think, rather than anything else, and that you kind of trigger it yourself. And that clears the energy, but you still have the stability that you need. You have good connections with others, all of that kind of thing. For some of you, there's a very significant relationship coming up as well too. If it's a Tower relationship, I'll talk to you about that when we get to that part of the reading, but that is possible. It could also be with some of this, a relationship that breaks a longer term relationship that is no longer working for you. So that's a possibility as well, but we'll get to that as we go. How this operates is that this is based on the astrology chart. So these are each of the houses of the chart. So they represent different parts of your life. So just very quickly, first house is how you come across to others. Second house is how you create the life you want in accordance with your values. Third house is communication. Fourth house is who you are at your core and who you are at home, your home life. Fifth house is love and relationships, creativity, and sometimes children. Sixth house is your day-to-day work, day-to-day routines, all of that kind of thing. Seventh house is all types of relationships, and to some degree that will be the case here because we're doing a collective reading. But if there's a significant relationship, and with what I'm seeing here, there could well be, it may use up most of the energy of that particular card. Eighth house is intimate partnerships, other people's resources, and the sort of Scorpio mystery school, reincarnation, all of those kind of spiritual things. The ninth house is how you expand your life to create the life that you want in accordance with your values. So things like higher learning, travel, philosophy. 10th house is your career. So this is day-to-day work. This is career and or your personal brand, how you present yourself out in the world. 11th house is friendships, social networks, social media. 12th house is the other sort of spiritual house. It's Pisces house. So it's a little bit more your kind of astral travel, liminal space stuff. But this is also what you keep private. Now, what I start with is I look at the tower as being a pivotal energy that kind of balances three axis points. The first one is between how you appear to others and your relationships with others. The second one is who you are at your core and then who you are out in the world. And the third one is how you're creating the life that you want and then how you expand to do it. So we start with that to set the theme, and then we'll go through the rest of the houses and talk about what else this is showing. But when we've got the Ace of Swords in how you come across to others, new ideas, new ways of doing things, a breath of fresh air to others, all of that kind of thing, it certainly suggests that you are accenting the new. So you're picking up that tower energy really positively. And with Nine of Pentacles reversed, it's not done in such a way that you isolate yourself from others or you're going necessarily for independence. It's more that you are finding new people, new connections, new workplaces, new whatever the Pentacles energy is there that makes you feel more at home with people. So there is a change and a shift, and you're using the tower energy well, but it is to bring in the right people around you and the right material sort of circumstances around you for the relationships that you want. And there's definitely a feeling of being with someone and of stability and security with that. So if this is a tower relationship, which I'll get to, it'll be intense as all get out, but there's a lot of signs here that it's good and it will stabilize and it's the right sort of person for you, which is really, really promising. And if you've been wondering about, do I take a relationship to the next level, but it's been like, well, how much will that change my life? The answer to that is probably it'll solidify and give you a sense of security. It won't do other things. So that's very positive. Like there's new way, you're coming across as having a new attitude to relationships and to life and to how you're presenting yourself in the world. And you're seen as very inspirational and very, new ideas, new thinking, forward thinking, all of that kind of thing. So then if we have a look at this axis point, this is interesting because the 10 of Pentacles at the core, it looks like you feel secure. You have a long-term view on things. So you're not change for change's sake. If you change with the tower, you're changing because it's necessary to bring about something that is a longer-term security for yourself. You have a material basis. You probably are well off or will become well off. This year may actually really move you in that direction. But you are making changes from a firm basis. You're not likely to change where you live this year unless it's to commit to a long-term relationship with someone. So that it's much more likely to be stability. You're coming from stability. But what you are doing is you're starting to assess how accurate the way you're presenting yourself in the world is compared to what you want to create. And it's very interesting seeing those two there. So that could be saying that why you're coming across as being new is that you've been thinking and doing a certain thing for quite a long time around your career, and now you want to do something very different. So this could be your classic sea change type of year where maybe you've been I don't know, I'll just pull something out of the air. You've been an accountant and you've done really well with it, but that's no longer how you want to present yourself in the world. You'd much rather be a business facilitator or something like that. So there is a shift in how you're communicating and showing yourself, and even in, to some degree, what you believe is you at your core. So I think that's the main energy that we're seeing here. But there could be, the energy of change might be how you have to change your external communications and the way you're seen, to fully embrace what is new. And it's interesting, we have the Hanged Man in the house of communication. There might be a sacrifice associated with that. It could be that, you feel like you were well established as an expert on something and now you're going into a new train, and there's a lot of blessing towards it and it's time, but it could be like the sacrifice might be, I'm not the expert anymore, I'm doing something new, and it's that kind of thing. Or you might delay it to some degree, or delay speaking about the change except to those that you are close to for a while. But there's definitely a closing out of one thing and moving to something else. I think particularly around career. But the good news is that you're in a solid foundation. It's not going to be something that destabilizes you financially. Even if you worry and you think there's a risk associated with it, it won't. This is a very positive energy. So change is going on, but it's from a very stable base. If you could imagine, the tower may fall, but it probably won't fall completely, and then you'll be able to build from there. So then we go, well, okay, like how you're creating the life you want. Well, there is something here about shifting from old emotional values into something new as well too. So it's partly what you believe and speak into the world, and it's partly what you feel and you would want to commit to emotionally. When we have the Seven of Cups reverse, you're very realistic about what you want emotionally now. So again, some of the cards that are here that might suggest a significant relationship, you'll be very realistic about it. You'll know that it's the one. And not to go into old patterns around it, that it's different. There's a difference to this. But it is possible as well for some of you that you decide to leave a relationship. And then if that's the case, I think there's a new one coming in. And in fact, a new one coming in might be what is the trigger for it. But there is a possibility that this is leaving a long-term relationship and it's the right thing to do now. And that's the biggest change that's occurring. It doesn't have to be that, so don't sort of like try and live into it. If you're happy in a long-term relationship, don't worry about it. It could just be, as I say, different emotional feelings about things that are governed by the ninth house. So you're moving to do something new and relying less on sort of like academia or something like that. So it's a new field rather than one you're really well known in. But there is definitely a letting go of emotional things that are no longer working for you to pragmatically move towards what you want emotionally. So I think you're using the Tower energy really, really well. But there will be some big shifts. It just depends on in what aspect, but I feel you choose those. So as I say, you'll come across very much as the inspirational, new thinking, new ways of doing things. You're very realistic emotionally about what you need to do to be happy. But you may feel you have to sacrifice something, or you may feel you have to keep something really private for a while. I kind of feel that's partly this. I feel as though you won't announce this new thing until you've got across the finish line. I feel like there's a period of time in the year where you're keeping to yourself the marathon you're really running. And like you are going to get across the finish line. When you do that, then you'll speak about it. But while you're doing the changing, you're not necessarily going to talk about it a lot. So I think that's probably the energy we're seeing. Fourth house, beyond, who you are at your core, so stable, financially stable, secure, long-term minded, like commitment minded, all of those things. It's also things like your home environment, so that's very stable, as I say. If you are a parent, very good relationship with your children. Maybe one of your children is old enough to have their first crush and you're sort of like, it's giving you that sense of legacy and, oh my goodness, the children are grown up. Or otherwise, it's just there's a very stable sort of energy that you have for the children. There's a very stable sense overall. You exude that actually, and which is why you can deal with this energy well. It's like you're very emotionally secure and clear about what you want, and you know how to like give stability when there's change and so forth. So that's all there as well. Now, love and relationships. Tower relationship. Let me talk to you about that. Tower relationships come up. I've read for people in relationships for years and years and years. And when the tower comes up, what I would normally say is it's be very intense. If this is showing in your relationship, which it very well could with the Two of Cups showing up in the House of Romance, because that's kind of a classic romance card. That definitely is an intense thing that knocks your socks off, and potentially or usually knocks the socks of the other person off too. There may be some gradation on who's more vulnerable under the tower than the other, but they're intense relationships. What is normally the case is that people think, oh, wow, that's it. This is going to be my divine counterpart and it's all going to work out fine. Trouble is that when it's that intense, there's a lot of fear associated with it. What I like is I think because at your core you're very grounded and you're very emotionally mature, you're less likely to be sort of like thrown by this, but you need to know the other person might be. So it may take a little bit of time. Having said that, that's very positive. It's definitely someone who's kind of your people, like it fits almost socially. And the timing seems to be like it's serendipitous, but it is the right timing and it's a fortunate connection. So I doubt in actual fact that you are going to find the other person is sort of hard to read or too scared to go forward or whatever. I think it's more likely that it will work out. The only thing, as I say, is that for some of you, it might come from either you are leaving a long-term relationship or maybe your new partner is, and that you've got to be realistic about that to allow that to occur and what that does for the timing. And again, if that's the case, you may be sacrificing coming out and showing this new direction until that's been resolved for the person. But it's very positive that way. If this is around creativity, you've got really good connections. They're going to really like your work, and there's some good fortune about taking it out into the world. So that's interesting. Though if you are sort of someone who has had an agent or something like that, you might find an opportunity to do something yourself or get a new agent and leave that, because that can sometimes be a ninth house thing as well too. There's definitely a moving away from something on that level. Okay, so then we have the world in the sixth house, and that, as I say, if this is your work, this is completing something, completing a level and moving up a level, completing some study and moving away from that, and then sort of actualizing what you want, deciding to leave one workplace and go somewhere else and start something new. There's a completion energy here. It could be for some of you, if the King of Swords reversed is also working as someone in your career environment, there could be someone in your work environment you're clashing with who has a higher status, and that might cause you to say, I'm going to leave. Or you might feel that the environment that your work is in is not in alignment with your values, and that causes you to leave and go and do something new. So that is a possibility that the King of Swords, we will clarify that card, but if it's working kind of negatively, it might be the cause of you leaving somewhere on a day-to-day level. Otherwise, I think it's just you recognizing that you've got new ideas and new things to do. Nine of Pentacles in the seventh house. As I say, if it's around a love relationship, it's sort of like it's I don't want to be independent anymore. This is my person. This is my people. It certainly is a sense of being with others, working with others and so forth. I don't think this is a year where, even though you're doing something very new, you'll necessarily just go out on your own. I think you're more likely to be around and work with other people. Very strong community focus to it. Wheel of Fortune in the eighth house. Extremely good at manifestation and kind of bringing in good fortune with that in Scorpio's house, and also picking timing, like your sense of if you get prodded to go and buy a lottery ticket, do it. Doesn't necessarily guarantee you're going to win, but you're more likely to with that kind of energy than not. Or it's not that you're more likely to than not win the lottery, because it's pretty strong odds there, but it's a good time to do that compared to other times. So something in that thing, and picking up the zeitgeist, what's going to be popular, what's going to work well in the world. You seem to be, particularly your future focused, and your sense of timing is extremely good. It also is fortunate, as I say, for like promotions, patronage, any of those sort of things. Talked about the Ten of Cups reversed in the ninth house. The only other thing I would say about that is that you may decide to travel to deal with family issues. If there are family issues that have kind of been unresolved for a while, you may decide to do that, and you may feel that's the realistic thing to kind of close out some tensions or something like that. King of Swords, we've talked about in its various aspects. The other thing about the what's in the 10th house is sometimes it's something, it's a skill that you can use for your personal brand. And I'm thinking for you, again, it's like knowing when ideas have done their time and when new ideas are necessary, or knowing when someone's not telling you the truth, like having a sense of that is something that will work well for you. The Fool in the house of friendship means new relationships, new adventures, new things coming in. So with your new energy, you're going to meet new people. If you wanted to do something online or something like that, it's the start of a new journey and very optimistic. It's a good energy. It's a positive energy. But as I say, with the Nine of Wands in the 12th house, you're not necessarily going to show people things until you're ready to cross the finish line. I think that you keep the planning and the building to yourself, and whatever you're dealing with the Tower energy. And then when you've got, I'm going to cross the finish line, I'm going into something new or whatever, that's when you'll let people know. It also suggests that you are very visual. You'll watch the visuals in your dreams, meditations and so forth, because you've got a very strong ability in that area. Okay, so I'm going to use the Chibi Tarot and we're going to look at the reverse cards, not because they're bad, but because they're a different energy of the archetype, just as a way of clarifying a bit. So let's have a little bit more of a look about how is your emotional realism helping you create the life that you want in 2026. The Moon reverse, you are able to bring things up. Like, very good year actually, as I say, visually in particular, for things like astral travel, meditation, shamanic journeying. You're able to bring things to the surface. You're able to face them. As I say, you're able to deal with this energy better than most. So I think the Tower, probably the reason that you came to it is that you are comfortable with Tower energy, and it makes you very, very realistic about what's coming up. Also, if this is about some sort of long-term emotional issue that either has to be left or resolved, you're bringing things to the surface. Let's have a look at the Nine of Pentacles reversed in the 7th house. The High Priestess. Okay, so there's definitely a sense of spiritual connection with others and psychic connection. In fact, I think your psychic and emotional energies are very strongly attuned, and they help you find your people and move away from those that aren't. So let's have a look at the Ten of Cups reversed. Ten of Cups upright. Oh, look at that. So once you've done the work on this and you're realistic and you've brought things to the surface and you face what needs to end, then really beautiful energy comes in and you've got the Ten of Pentacles down here. I definitely think this is a year you're meant to consolidate family, love, all of that kind of thing. So really, really positive. Like the journey is going to be lovely in the end. And if you are looking to reconcile or resolve old emotional issues in your family, you're going to do it. So that's good. King of Swords reversed in the 10th house. The Sun. Yeah, this is all about the new things, the new abilities being on your life path. Certainly if you have been dealing with someone who you have a difference of opinion with, it's going to help you close out and go on your life path. But otherwise, this is you knowing the next step on your journey. So I think it's a very positive year. I don't think there's anything that much to worry about. But let's get some other astrology energy with the Astro dice. We'll roll it 3 times. So firstly, we have 10th house, Gemini, Pluto. So big changes in the 10th house here in who and how you communicate. This is a new idea coming in, and it will be communicated, even if it takes a little while to do it, but big changes associated with that. Like there is a real shift in how you're going to communicate in the world. Real shift operating. Secondly, we have Leo, Pluto again, in Leo in the 12th house. So really, again, lots of energy operating for the change energy there. And again, you're not going to show it to people till you're ready to cross the finish line. But this has to do with, it's connecting these. It's connecting the 10th and the and the Sun, because the Sun is a Leo card. This is really a time for you. Eventually you're going to show it, but like a lot of the year you're going to be doing the changes within that then manifest all of this. So I think some of this is likely to manifest more in the second half of the year. And thirdly, we have Neptune, your psychic ability in the 1st house. So psychic energy and new ideas in Cancer. It's got something to do with how you how you get that stability. Like the new idea will help the stability and will help people feel secure and feel that they're part of something. And it will also, something that you do in the way you communicate resolves any kind of family issues as well, and aligns your path with longer term community or family or love. So again, very positive. Okay, let's see chakra energy for you in 2026 or the next 12 months if you've come across this at another time. Root chakra. I'm struggling with change. Okay, well, that's interesting because I don't think you will normally, but it may be that sometimes it does feel a bit overwhelming and that's why you slow things down. I think, remember this reading though, you're actually well equipped to do this and it's going to have good energy and you are going to have the stability. Like, remember that, because that matters to you, which is probably why we've got the root chakras going, oh, but it's going to be okay. And then we get third eye. I see and can lack clarity. Okay. So that's why it's saying go within your sort of psychic ability and that kind of thing and your intuition. That's where you're going to get the clarity, because there is a lot of change going on. So it's like when you are struggling with change and you're not feeling that you're clear on it, sort of go within your own sort of psychic intuition. That's where you'll get the answers that you need. Okay, let's get you a couple of animal guides as well. Dragonfly, breaking free from illusion. Yeah, it's sort of like this is, I mean, like some of the change and some of the lack of clarity is probably the thing that actually points you towards the outcome and the new way of being. So don't struggle with it. The tower's going to work really well for you. And unicorn, otherworldly power. Yeah, and you have a lot of psychic ability, I think. As I say, particularly around timing and the zeitgeist and fortune, picking up on fortune. So those are both very strong spirit guides to get. So again, to sort of like make you feel comfortable and confident about the change that you're going through. Okay, to finish off, I'm just going to ask you to choose a number between 1 and 5 because we're going to get a card for each of those numbers from the Neptune Moon Oracle, just for any sort of synthesizing spiritual message for you. So pause if you need to because I'm about to deal out. So number 1, cosmic law. Number 2, silicon symbiosis. It's interesting. Number 3, distraction addiction. Number 4, renewal emergence. And number 5, cosmic gears. Okay. So if you chose number 1, cosmic law, balance, fairness, justice, that might be why we have the King of Swords reversed up there. It may be an additional piece of information for those who chose number 1, which is that part of your stability, your security, and the way you manage the change and the way you bring in the new is that you have to deal with anything that you think is unjust. It's part of your nature to see when it's unjust and to bring it back into balance. So you may be doing a shift in a group or in an organisation or something to bring more fairness into the organisation and a new way of doing things. If you chose number 2, silicon symbiosis, AI reliance, this may be connecting, like the Ace of Swords here might be connecting to that, and like King of Swords reverse moving to the Ace of Swords. It may well be that things like AI, technology and so forth are going to be very important in whatever you are wanting to do. And work well for you, but you need to be aware that it is kind of a combined thing. It's your own energy, but it's also what you get through that. If you chose number 3, it might be that there's too much reliance on that distraction addiction, bound by technology. So and that might be trying to let that go to do something new. So for some of you, you may be trying to shift how you deal with technology and the changes there to get back a sense of security and direction for yourself. If you chose number 4, renewal, emergence, new beginnings, it's just showing the new energies coming through. This is renewal. It's good. Don't worry about it. If you chose number 5, cosmic gears, the great reset, then this is your great reset, but you are going to be secure. But I think it's really pointing to the Wheel of Fortune in Scorpio's house. I think there is something about you that is very attuned to timelines and things like that, and when the most appropriate time is to bring about what you're trying to do. So pay attention to that because you've got a real gift in that area. So I hope that resonates for you. I hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like and subscribe. If you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings.